Hello, welcome. So today I want to talk about being supported by stillness. It's like there's two possibilities, or it's like there's a choice that needs to be made, that we all need to make between what we could call the material world and stillness. The choice is between those two things. This the material world is the world governed by craving, and that's the one most of us end up being caught up in, at least for a very long time. And that world of craving, that's what was referred to in Buddhism as samsara. So there's a choice between that or this other world which we could call stillness. And depending on which one of these we choose, that will determine our well-being and our ability to fully appreciate life. And that's basically what I want to talk about today, or look at today. Try to explain more what this stillness is. And it's quite difficult because stillness actually has no qualities. But we find it when we stop resisting life. And if you've kind of watched some of my previous videos, I've explained how craving is how we resist life. But when we stop craving, we start to experience something else. We start to experience stillness and peace. And that is, I'm absolutely convinced, is what everyone is actually looking for. That in this stillness is to be found peace. In this stillness is to be found connection. In that stillness is found belonging. I spent a great deal of my life moving from place to place in this desperate search for belonging. I actually wrote a blog post about it this week, and I'll link to that. But I've spent so much of my life trying to find somewhere where I could fit in. I left my home country when I was 18. I've actually been living here in Thailand now longer than I actually lived in my own country. But I was never able to find a place where I felt I belonged. And that's because belonging is not about a place. Belonging is not about people. Belonging is about something inside of us. And that belonging I was looking for is this stillness. Another thing I desperately saw was connection. I tried, desperately hard to connect with people, but I was never able to in the way I would have liked to. I was never able to kind of connect strongly enough with people, or reliably enough with people. And that's because, again, this connection that our heart really yearns for, that incredibly deep connection that goes beyond individuality, can only be found in stillness. In the world of individuality, it just can't be found, because we all have to have our own individual agendas to kind of make it true. So we can't fully ever give ourselves to each other in the way that stillness operates. So finding this stillness was the most important thing for me, and it was the thing I'd been so yearning for, and it drove so much of my poor choices as well as my good choices. And that's because of this confusion. There could be this confusion that the way to kind of get this, and we'll have different names for it. We'll call, for what we're seeking for, but the search, that search for it, often leads into rejecting what's here, which is actually, but it's what here. It's the stillness that's here, that it actually is what we're seeking. And that only comes when we completely surrender to what's here. And as I spoke about in the last video, when we choose what is here. As soon as we choose what's here, we're no longer craving. And because we're no longer craving, we're no longer resisting. And then we can find that peace that we're yearning for. And that peace it's this incredible support. I once heard some teacher, some Indian guru, refer to it, that it's like sitting in the lap of a goddess, and that's exactly how it feels. It's this protection, this if you want to use the word refuge, but it's always there. So it's like you're always, no matter what's going on, being held, being supported, being connected, being loved, that it's constantly present. And that absolutely, alters our life completely. So many people are, and I was certainly one, we have these, what are called, maybe unhelpful attachment styles, and we're desperately looking for another person to make us feel whole, but that can never come from another person. It can only come from within. And until we really get that, we'll kind of keep on making the same mistakes. But the thing we're looking for absolutely does exist. But it's just, the way to find it is to stop, trying to manipulate life and other people in order to get it, because that's not where it comes from. It comes from doing the opposite. It comes from, it's important to say, this not resisting life doesn't mean becoming a fatalist and just like lying down and let life like walk all over you. Quite the opposite. But it's sort of like moving from a different operating system. So we're all very aware of the operating system that's run by craving. And this is another operating system that's about stillness, and it's run by passion. And they're very, very different. In fact, the thing about craving is it's a big waste of energy. We waste a hell of a lot of energy in that, and because of that. So this avoids all of that. So, like it's a much more efficient way of doing things. There's so much about stillness that's impossible to explain, because stillness has no qualities. And anything I say about it can only cheapen it, can only lessen it. That it's beyond words, it's beyond all qualities. And it's beyond existence and non-existence. That the fact that stillness has no qualities means that I had periods in my life where I would suffer from depression, and particularly in my 20s, and I would get quite suicidal. And the thing I was looking for was non-existence. I just didn't want to have to deal with life anymore. The amazing thing is stillness is non-existence, but it's also everything. And this is something we'll maybe come to it again. These are part of a few videos where I'm kind of looking at these 9 ways of looking. And we'll come to all this stillness, but the stillness is everything, and it's also nothing, but there actually is, this stillness likes to dance, and that's why it's very important to, I use the word stillness, but I don't mean that as in non-movement. It's beyond that. I use the word stillness because it was actually this kind of becoming still that allowed me to come in contact with it. But actually, as I say, it's a stillness that's always there. Like I was running, just before I'm making this video, and even though it was moving, there was, complete, stillness and a complete sense of being held in stillness. I mean, I am pretty slow, but it was not. But even when I pick the pace up a bit, there's still that absolute stillness there. It's always there, constantly there, even in sleep. And when we kind of finally recognize this, it's such a huge thing. I may have shared on another video when I first started to get a glimpse of the meaning and the depth of this stillness. I was completely overwhelmed. I actually started sobbing because there was a part of me that really didn't feel I deserved anything so incredible. And I remember when I was looking, I almost wanted to try to hide from it because it was too incredible. But of course, eventually I realized that stillness is me. It is what I am. I think it is what we all are. In fact, that's how I see it. For me, there is only stillness. Sometimes the stillness is moving, and we call that life. But that might sound very, very strange, and it I wouldn't worry about it too much. But the thing is, this is not a belief. This has got nothing to do with belief. This is a living thing. You know, the peace is not something you believe in, it's something that you start to experience. And you know, you realize that that's what we were looking for all along. And once you have it, you know, it's such a relief. It's like, even though we can say our heart led us in the wrong directions often, and we took maybe wrong choices, but that the thing we were seeking, and often desperately seeking, was a real thing. And when you actually find it, it's an incredible relief. And we'll have this support of stillness going forward. And all it requires for that to begin to happen is to stop resisting. To stop resisting what's here. As I talked about in the last video, learn to choose what's here. That's how this begins. That's the most important step. As long as we're resisting what's here, and this is what was so wonderful about, say, the Buddha. You know, I don't necessarily consider myself any particular religion. You know, I've kind of, I don't necessarily subscribe to any religion, but I'm very much influenced by Buddhism, and that was very much part of my path for a long time. And the one thing that he made very clear, and that was so wonderful, was how craving was the key, and that's what turned out to be for me as well. That when we see that, we find peace. When we start to escape craving, we find peace, and that craving always means resisting what's here. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again. I'll be making a few of these videos, so there's actually 9 ways of looking, and I want to. I've done a video on all of them in a kind of review style, but I want to kind of go through each of them individually. In fact, this is the only thing I really want to talk about these days is these 9 ways of looking. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again.